It's been 5 years since I came on a one-way ticket to Thailand, and it's so crazy to think about how much time has passed by. And I wanted to use this video to share 7 things that you should know before you come to Thailand, whether you're just traveling through or if it's a place that you actually want to come to live long term. And I want to preface before I go into the 7 different tips that I have that this is really going to vary depending on what type of lifestyle you have, what your budget is, and if you're looking to live here long term or if this is just, you're going to be here for a few weeks at a time. So something to keep in mind. So let's get into it. Number 1, visas. So this is a question that I get a lot, especially from friends back home who want to, travel here for long periods of time. They're like, how have you been there for 5 years? So there's a couple different ways that you can do that, but I'm going to talk about education visas because that's just what I have experience with. And so when I first came out here in 2019, I was actually on a work permit, which allowed me to have a work visa. So backstory for another video, but I used to be a family counselor, and so I was doing that here for 2 years. And so when that was finished and I decided to move on for that and start working remotely like I am now, I switched to an education visa. So with education visas, there's a couple different options that you can do. The most common one is Thai language. So essentially you're a student and you're studying the Thai language. They have online classes. They also have in-person classes. I like online options just because it's a little more flexible. But this, you pay up front. I did it through a visa agency here. You pay up front in the beginning of the year, and then you have the visa for the full year. There's other education visas like Muay Thai visas, if you're into that, or they also have self-defense visas. They used to have a volunteer visa, but I'm not sure if that's actually an option anymore after COVID. So yeah, those are a couple different ways that you can stay here. The only thing with education visas is that there's a limit to how many years you can have them for. And this is always changing. If you've traveled to Thailand, you know that things with immigration and the rules with different visas are changing often and all the time. And so usually they say you can have an education visa for at least 3 years. And then I've heard that you can switch to, let's say a Muay Thai visa, and then the additional 3 years can continue, but that's always changing, like I said. But I think for me, the education visa is the easiest way if you want to stay here long term. If you're here short term and you're just traveling through, you can get a visa on arrival and extend it. So you basically just go to immigration and extend it for another 30 days after your initial 30 days is up. But yeah, for long-term travel and wanting to be here, let's say for a few months at a time, I think that could be an option. But if you want to stay here for at least a year, let's say, education visas are probably the best option. If you want to work as like a teacher, let's say part-time, like you want to teach English and kind of just travel around, the work option, work visa and work permit is a good option as well. Number 2 is healthcare. I think this is a big one that's often overlooked. If you're like me and you're from the States, the cost of healthcare is just insane back home, and just the cost of things like picking up medicine at the pharmacy or wanting to, you're sick and you want to see a doctor and having to wait weeks to make an appointment, and just the cost in general is just crazy to think about. And since I've been to Thailand, I've realized that there's really great quality of healthcare outside of the US. And, when I first moved here in 2019, I actually ended up getting really sick and having to stay in the hospital for a few days. And I ended up paying it out of pocket. I think I paid maybe like 300 USD for a few days. That includes like medicine, food, care, everything like that, which is like unheard of in the States. And so even things like, if you're not feeling well and you need to go to the doctor and get a checkup or get some tests done, those things are really affordable. And so most people here pay them out of pocket. I also have health insurance, but it's outpatient health insurance. So mostly for things like emergencies or long-term care. So let's say, I get into an accident or something like that happens. That's what that's there for. But for everyday like checkups and just going to the doctor and wanting to, I'm not feeling well, can you run some tests, see what's going on? Those are typically affordable to pay out of pocket. And I think when people think of Thailand, they often think of like, oh, it's this like third world country, and what if there's an emergency? And the quality of healthcare here, I think, is amazing. Some places better than I've been to in the States. So I feel really taken care of and really safe and protected here in that way, because of not only is it affordable, but just the quality is really, really great as well. And number 3, transportation. This is a big one as well, because I think when people think of Thailand or Southeast Asia, they think, oh, I'm gonna have to learn how to drive a motorbike, which is like super stressful if you've never done that before. But here we have, if you're from the States and you're familiar with Uber, we have something similar here called Grab. And so basically it's the same thing. You put your location on the app, they come pick you up and drop you off. With that, like if I want to go from my condo to, I don't know, a restaurant somewhere, it's around usually like $3 or $4 US one way. So super affordable. So if you're not comfortable driving a motorbike and that's not something that you are looking to do, transportation here is not a problem because they have Grab. Grab is also used for food delivery as well. So let's say it's raining, or the things that you want are not in walking distance, for example, you can also order Grab for food delivery. Even for things like, I need to go to the store and pick up, I don't know, a few groceries, or there's this document I need to pick up from my visa agency, or whatever it is, there's also an option for that on the Grab app as well. So transportation in general, getting groceries and doing all of that can all be used through the Grab app, which I think is really important because, driving in Southeast Asia with a motorbike can be scary and stressful, especially if you haven't done it before. And so it just gives you some other options and helps you feel more safe, I think. So number 4, I don't really know what to categorize this as, but I think when people think of Thailand or Southeast Asia in general, they think we don't have a lot of the same modern like shops or malls or grocery stores or just typical things that we have in the States. Like here, for example, we have, if you're familiar with Costco back in the US, we have a store here that's also like Costco, but it's called Macro, and it's the same thing. You buy things in bulk. We have Western grocery stores, we have Western restaurants, there's Italian restaurants, there's Mexican restaurants, there's literally anything that you need we have here. And I think sometimes people have this idea or misconception that like, oh, how am I gonna find food, or how am I, like, we have everything that you would need, or that you have in the States as well. For number 5, food. So this is a big one as well. So I typically eat a lot of Western meals, I think because I've been here for so long that I love Thai food, but once in a while I'm like, okay, I need some, to mix it up a bit. But yeah, Western food can be a little pricey here depending, again, on your budget and your lifestyle, but for me, that's what I like. But you can also find, $3 Thai dishes like pad Thai or fried rice or pad kapow, whatever it is that you want. You can find that here cheaper and affordable. But if you're more into, you want more Western dishes, or, you go to the Western grocery stores to buy stuff to cook and things like that, that can be a little more pricey. Like I'm really obsessed with acai bowls right now. And I've been buying, I think it's around like $8 US for an acai bowl, which is like, for Thailand, that's a lot. Back in the States, I want to say it's around the same or a little more. But just something to keep in mind if you're looking to travel on a budget, maybe Thai food is the way to go. But if, let's say you're here long term and you want other options, there are options here. There's tons. We have amazing food here. There's even some really good like Indian restaurants. Yeah, there's just a lot. So nothing to worry about, but something to keep in mind as well. Number 6, paying for things. I think this is another big question that always gets asked is, how do you transfer your money and how do you pay for things there? So I have a Thai bank, and you can only do that if you're on a long-term visa, and so that's how I did it when I initially moved here 5 years ago. So I have a Thai bank, and so my clients that I work for remotely, they are overseas, and so I get paid in US dollars, and then I transfer that to, so I basically pull it out of the ATM, and the bank that I use, they reimburse all of my ATM fees, so I don't have to worry about that. So I pull the money out of the ATM from US dollars to Thai baht, and then I deposit it into my Thai bank account. So it's pretty simple, but if you have a bank account with high fees for, ATM fees, that might be an issue. But if you can find one that, let's say, like I use Schwab and they always reimburse me at the end of the month for all of my ATM fees, it can save you a lot of money and time as well if you have a Thai bank account. If you don't have a Thai bank account, you can use debit cards at some places, but they usually charge a fee, and it's not very common. So here, a lot of the times we use QR codes to pay. So with my Thai bank, I have an app, and I use the app and I open it up and I scan a QR code to pay just about everywhere. So that includes grocery stores, cafes, restaurants, everything. And so that's something to keep in mind as well, that there are some options, but let's say you're here long term, on a long-term visa, opening a Thai bank account would probably be a better option, just so it's easy to kind of transfer and manage your money that way. Number 7, community. This is a really big one for me, for someone who's lived here for 5 years long-term. Chiang Mai specifically can be a very transient place, so people are always coming and going. It can be hard, you build relationships with people, and some of my close friends were here for 1 or 2 years and then they moved on to somewhere else. I'm probably one of the only ones that has stayed here this long. And that's not to say that there aren't people that, stay here for years at a time. There's other, expat, and there's a great expat community here. But I think that's, community is really big when you're in a new country by yourself and really trying to build a life here. I think having a community can really help make it easier to adjust. And also just, having a community that really understands the lifestyle that you're living is really important. And when people are always coming and going in places like Chiang Mai, it can be really difficult to have really strong and meaningful relationships with people, knowing that they're going to be leaving in a few months. So I think a lot of people talk about the highlights of, moving abroad and doing this solo travel and digital nomad expat kind of life. And there are amazing things to it, but I think the one component of it that's not always talked about is the importance of community. And so here, there's tons of different options. There's digital nomad events that they have at the co-working places here. They hold a lot of events too to kind of network, and you can also build community that way. For me, I started dancing bachata about a year ago, so Latin dancing, and I've been doing that for a year, and you go to classes every week, you see the same faces, and so that's kind of become my community, and most of them have been here long term as well. And so it depends on where you go, but usually you can find knits of groups like that can really help make the transition easier, or just in general really understand that kind of lifestyle. And I think having that is really important as well. So those are the 7 tips and recommendations that I have if you're looking to move abroad, or if you're just looking to pass through Thailand. I think if you haven't, if you plan these different areas, I think it can make the transition a lot easier. And I hope that this was helpful. And if you'd like to see more videos like this, please subscribe. And I'll see you in the next video.